The iron fence stretched across the prairie, like a quiet promise of order. In a wild world, its black bars catching the late afternoon sun as if they too were tired. Behind it stood a man whose life had been built on control, land measured in miles, cattle counted in thousands. Silence purchased with money. Ethan Cole was known across 3 counties as the richest cowboy anyone had ever seen, a man who could buy storms out of the sky if he wished. Yet on that evening, leaning against the fence with dust on, his boots and a weight in his chest he never spoke about, Ethan felt poorer than he ever had. The wind carried the smell of hay and old leather, and with it memories he tried not to touch. His wife's laugh, the nursery they never finished, the tiny boots that were bought and never worn. He had learned to live with loss by building walls higher than fences. But grief has a way of slipping through the smallest cracks. He was about to turn back toward the ranch house when he heard it. 2 small voices, thin but determined, calling out from the other side of the fence. "Mister, please!" Ethan looked up, surprised. Standing there were 2 little girls, identical as reflections in still water, the hair tied in uneven pigtails, their dresses clean but worn. They clutched the fence as if it were the only thing keeping them upright. Their eyes were too serious for their age, the kind of eyes that had seen too much too soon. Ethan's instinct was to step back. Children did that to him, stirred up ghosts he had buried deep. But then one of the girls spoke again, her voice trembling but brave. "Please, just be our daddy for today." The word struck him harder than any stampede. For a moment the prairie went silent. Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it. He had money, land, power, but he had no idea how to answer a plea like that. "Girls," he said carefully, lowering his voice as if loudness might break them. "I'm not your daddy." The other twin shook her head fiercely. "We know," she said. "Ours is gone." There was no drama in her tone, just fact. "But today is Father's Day at school. Everyone else has one. We don't want to be the only one sitting alone," her sister added, almost whispering, "just for today. We won't bother you after." Ethan felt something inside him crack. He told himself 100 reasons to say no, liability, boundaries, the way hope could hurt worse than loss. But he also remembered what it felt like to sit alone, while the world celebrated something you didn't have. He looked down at the twins, hands gripping the cold metal, and realized they weren't asking for money or favors. They were asking for dignity. He unlocked the gate without another word. The metal creaked open, and the girls stepped onto his land as if crossing into another life. "I'm Ethan," he said gruffly. "For today," the first girl smiled, relief blooming across her face. "We'll call you Daddy." They walked together toward the ranch house, the girls chattering softly about their school, their teacher, how they'd practiced a song. Ethan listened, awkward at first, then more intently than he had listened to anyone in years. Inside, the house felt less empty, with their footsteps echoing down the hall. He found 2 clean shirts from a donation box he kept for ranch hands, families, and let the girls wash their hands at the sink. When they smiled at their reflections, something warm stirred in his chest. At the school, parents turned to look, some curious, some surprised, when Ethan arrived with the twins holding his hands. He stood taller than usual, not from pride, but from purpose. During the ceremony, the girls sang. Their voices wavered but never broke. When they looked at Ethan, he nodded and they sang louder. Applause filled the room, and the twins beamed as if the sun had chosen them. Afterward, there were pictures, Ethan crouching between them, unsure where to put his hands, until they leaned into him naturally, like it had always been that way. On the drive back, they talked about ice cream and swings, and how Daddy should smile more. Ethan laughed, a sound so unfamiliar it surprised him. At the fence again, the sun dipping low, the girls hesitated. "Thank you," one said. "We won't ask again." Ethan knelt so he was eye level with them. "You didn't ask for much," he replied. "You reminded me of something I forgot." He watched them walk away, their small figures growing distant. The gate clicked shut. Ethan stood alone again, but the silence was different now. It was filled with echoes of laughter, with the possibility that today had changed more than just one afternoon. If this moment touched your heart, take a second to subscribe to the channel, because the next chapter goes even deeper into what happens when broken lives collide. And Chapter 2. Ethan told himself it was over. A kind act, a single day, nothing more. Yet the next morning, the ranch felt wrong without the twins' voices. He found himself setting out 3 cups instead of 1, pausing mid-step as if expecting someone to race past him. Days passed, but the memory lingered. Then one evening a storm rolled in fast and angry, the sky splitting open with thunder. As Ethan secured the barn, he saw 2 familiar figures huddled by the fence, rain plastering their hair to their faces. His heart leapt into his throat. He ran to them, coat flapping behind him. "What are you doing out here?" he shouted over the wind. The twins looked up, eyes wide with fear. "Our aunt didn't come home," one cried. "We didn't know where else to go." Ethan didn't hesitate. He wrapped them in his coat and carried them inside, his mind already racing through plans, responsibilities he had never prepared for, but somehow knew how to meet. That night, as the storm raged, the twins slept on his couch, curled up like kittens. Ethan sat nearby keeping watch, realizing that the fence he had built around his heart was no match for 2 small girls who had walked right through it. In the days that followed, social workers came and went, paperwork piled up, and decisions loomed heavy. Ethan learned about their past, the loss, the instability, the quiet courage it took to keep going. He also learned something about himself, that love didn't weaken him, it anchored him. He began showing up to school meetings, to bedtime stories, to scraped knees and bad dreams. The twins learned the rhythms of ranch life, their laughter echoing across fields that had known only wind. Neighbors noticed the change in Ethan, the way his eyes softened, the way he smiled without trying. One evening, standing by the fence where it had all begun, the twins held his hands. "You know," one said shyly, "oh, you don't have to be our daddy just for today anymore." Ethan swallowed hard, emotion thick in his throat. "I was hoping you'd say that," he replied. The adoption took time, patience and courage, but when it was done, Ethan stood in a courtroom holding the twins' hands, promising forever. The judge smiled, the gavel fell, and a family was born, not from blood but from choice. Back at the ranch, as the sun set beyond the fence, Ethan lifted the girls onto his shoulders. The prairie stretched wide and endless, just like the future before them. The fence was still there, but it no longer marked boundaries. It marked the place where 3 lonely hearts had found each other.